Welcome back to another episode of DEC Does What. I'm Sean Mahar along with
Erica Ringewald.
And Erica, we have an exciting show for us in store today.
Indeed we do.
So, did you know that we respond to over 10,000 spills a year in the environment?
I did because I'm on the emails.
Right? Every single one. Our folks in the field are always busy out there. Something is always going on. Something is going bump in the night. And today we're talking to two of our spill responders who are the people on the front lines of cleaning up the environment when something goes wrong.
Yep.
So, Erica, who do we have on today?
We've got Mike Zamiarski, Regional Spill Engineer from Out Region 8 Way, and we've got Kevin Hale, who is the Chief of Spill Response Coordination.
Mike and Kevin, thanks for being on the show.
My pleasure.
Glad to be here. Thanks.
So talk to us a little bit about DEC spill response. I mean, most people think of our remediation efforts on like Superfund or brownfield sites, more historic legacy contamination. But unfortunately, we're having things spill in the environment every day around the state. So what is the role of our spill responders?
Well, I think if you remember the old show MASH, we're the MASH unit. I think for the department, 10,000 spills a year, a lot of variety, most needing some level of a response or follow-up. We have a great group statewide that likes to get outside, get their hands dirty, and that's what we do. Hopefully we can find the person that spilled it and get them to clean it up, but if not, we take care of it.
Yeah, continuing with that analogy, in MASH they used to refer to them as meatball surgeons. And actually, they became very, very good at what they did by having to do it repeatedly, do it many times, and perfect new techniques and advance the cause. I like to think of it as remediation in real time, where we don't get to study a problem for many years in advance. We have to go out and use our professional judgment and do what we can to be best for the environment and for the citizens of New York.
So what are some of the spills that we're responding to? Is it just petroleum-based, or what are some of the other incidents that we find ourselves in?
Oh, geez. Too many to name all of them, but petroleum's by far the largest. But anything that's being hauled over the road, when there's a big truck accident, you never know what's in the back of it. Chemicals, waste, chocolate, beer, milk, manure, sewage. Some are more fun than others to respond to, as you can imagine.
And what also qualifies as spills are things that were quite prevalent when I first got involved in cleaning up the environment. These underground storage tanks at gas stations and sometimes just in people's backyards. Back in the day, 30, 40 years ago, when these tanks were all put in as bare steel without any early warning system, so when they rotted out, you had the direct injection of gasoline or oil underground beneath Mother Nature's natural line of defenses that you have on the surface. And this could create tremendous dissolved groundwater plumes that invade people's drinking water wells or public supply wells. So there's besides the environmental aspects, there are real public health concerns about these underground storage tanks but now, through modern petroleum bulk storage advances in technology, we have early warning devices, at least on gas stations, not on homes, that will greatly minimize the impact from future spills.
So I get why we need to clean up the petroleum spills. Out of my blissful ignorance, can you explain a little bit to me when there's a spill with milk, because we've seen a few of those, or maybe something like beer, why we need to get out there and contain it?
Especially with a lot of those materials, if they get into a waterway, they will lead to fish kills. And some of them, if they get into drinking water, will impact the drinking water. So that don't cry over spilt milk that we've all heard growing up.
It was wrong.
It can be at times.
Yeah, that's the paradox with what was spilled. People think of gasoline or a dry cleaning solvent or other things as really toxic and problematic, but in most cases the milk or beer spilled into a river robbing of the oxygen out of the groundwater would create a worse fish spill than the gasoline would.
So walk us through what it is like to come up on a spill. So we're probably one of the earlier folks on the scene, but not necessarily the first. And we get a call, I assume, from an emergency responder. But walk us through what that response looks like and how do you approach a situation?
Sure, and you're right. We're usually not the first ones. Usually, fire department, police are out there before us, and we try to get as much information over the phone when the spill comes in to know how to respond. Do we need to hire a contractor to meet us out there, or can we rely on the spiller to do some of the work? But with that information we get on the phone, we figure out on the way there what's going to be needed resource-wise, what is going to be impacted. Is it out in the middle of a field on the side of the road with no water bodies, no drainage ditches, sewer intakes? Those are the, I guess, preferred ones because it buys some time. You don't have to ensure that it gets cleaned up, incredibly quick because it's not going to cause much harm. But when you get there, and when we pull up, everyone starts looking at us right away. Sometimes you're not even out of your truck yet, and you have health department, fire department, state police, local police coming up. What do we do? What are you guys going to do to clean this up? And often by the time we get there, the situation has changed. Whatever spilled has either gone farther than we knew initially, or a lot of times the local responders will utilize their resources and do some initial efforts to minimize how far it goes. And to help with that, we have periodic meetings with various local, county, state officials, groups, so we can talk about expectations before a spill happens. So the classic example that we get a lot in Region 8, which is the Finger Lakes area, is a truck alongside one of the Finger Lakes, goes off the road, either the diesel or the contents of the truck spill in a ditch, which then is going to get to a creek, which goes right to one of the Finger Lakes. A lot of the local highway departments, fire departments now know, hey, let's bring some sand out, dam it up. At least we'll keep it contained to a smaller area, prevent it from getting into the waterways. And then we reassess when we're there and, go from there and hope it hasn't made it to the waterways. It does at times, just topography-wise, and the time it takes for someone to get out there is challenging. So we will then try to get ahead of the spill and put barriers, booms, containment to keep it from going any further.
Corral that mess.
Exactly.
So is there a busier time of year for spills, or is this happening all days, all years, all times of year?
It's pretty consistent. I think certain times of year you have more types of spills than others. In the fall, we see an uptick in the home heating oil spills. People are getting their tanks filled for the first time, or they'll go and they'll wonder why the 200 gallons they put in April is no longer there, and the tank leaked over the summer. And so we see an increase in those spills in the fall and the wintertime. Spring, early summer, we start getting a lot of calls that people are out, the weather breaks, we're outside hiking, canoeing, and there's some funny looking film on the water. And a lot of that happens, with the snow melt and the spring rains. It washes materials off the road. Something might have been released during the winter that no one ever knew about, and that shows up. Then warm weather construction season usually starts, and that brings on the whole bunch of issues with all of a sudden you're breaking ground and digging, next to a gas station or next to an empty lot that might have been a gas station 40 years ago. And all of a sudden there's contamination found at 8 to 10 feet down.
So, important plug here to check out dec.ny.gov for home heating oil storage tips. Each year we put out a press release and have great information. If you have a home heating oil tank in your home, there's some great tips that you can follow to make sure that you're not potentially having a spill in the future. And how does that work from a preventative standpoint? I imagine many of these spills could probably have been prevented, right? So how are we being proactive in our engagement with folks on that?
Well, with the home heating oil, what you mentioned is really the key. People can do their own inspections of their tanks, especially above ground tanks in the basement or outside. Have your heating contractor or fuel supplier take a look at it to make sure there's a trained eye looking at it. More challenges the old underground heating oil tanks at a house, out of sight, out of mind. You don't know is a problem until you no longer have oil or heat. I think on the broader scale, the regulated petroleum storage facilities, gas stations, commercial properties, those tanks typically have to be registered under our petroleum bulk storage program. And with the regulations comes a handful of requirements for the type of tank, the requirements, corrosion resistant, having secondary containment, leak detection, all the bells and whistles.
Yeah. It gets very complicated for the retail gasoline vendors. For the residential, for the homeowners, for their heating oil tanks, I always suggest that where possible, they get a service contract with the company that'll come in there and maintain the system. That's what we had on Long Island growing up. Is company would maintain your heating plant, your oil burner, and your tank. You'd pay a premium, probably maybe 20, 25 cents a gallon more overall, but you have the peace of mind that your system's going to be in good shape.
And that cost is very small compared to a spill cleanup.
Yeah.
When your basement has to be ripped apart.
Yeah, and unfortunately, most homeowners' plans, they have the petroleum prohibition. You won't be covered. It can get tremendously expensive very quickly. So we really do encourage folks to keep a good eye on your system. And if you have an underground storage tank that you don't know the condition of it, you want to look into it and make sure that it's not causing you a problem that's out of sight, out of mind.
So, if you could each share your most memorable spill story, something that ideally you learned something from, or maybe developed a best practice.
Well, even doing this for 34 years, I think most spills I walk away learning something new, or something I learned 25 years ago that I haven't come across.
A refresher.
Exactly. Refreshers are great. You're never too old to learn something new or relearn something. But I would say for me, it's helping the public. Often we get involved when a house is impacted by an off-site source, and these are people that didn't have any petroleum stored at their house, other than what's in their car. And next thing you know, they're being evacuated out of their house because of strong gasoline or oil odors in the basement or throughout the entire house, and it's really taxing on them. Their family have to uproot and leave, and it just changes their life for a while. So we do whatever we can to mitigate the situation to get them back in their house first, often working with the health department on those situations, and the gratitude that we often get from them. They're mad and frustrated and often take it out on us because we're right there. But they sincerely, at least in my case, my experience, they sincerely appreciate what we do, especially when they can, come back into their house. And, one I had was right after Thanksgiving, and the concern was this family of, I think there was 7 total, were going to be out of their house through Christmas and New Year's. And we did enough work to get them back in 3 days before Christmas.
Excellent.
Yeah. Mike hit the nail right on the head. The most rewarding part of the job, in my opinion, has been the opportunity to help people out during difficult times. And had the honor of the New York State checkbook through the Oil Spill Fund to do what needs to be done in real time when they're doesn't appear to be a viable, responsible party up front that's willing or able to finance whatever needs to be done.
Talk to us a little bit about the scale. 10,000 seems like a lot, right? This isn't 10,000 like Exxon Valdez oil spills that we're responding to, right? But give us a little bit of more of the scale.
Sure. It used to be 30,000 before we switched out most of the metal tanks. Now it's 10,000 a year, and coincidentally, we have more. We have almost the same number of spills because our early warning systems are going off for very small amounts of things. So the good thing is we're getting a warning up front. Okay, some buzzer or alarm went off at the gas station, indicating there's a problem with the system. But so that we have the early warning, so before the horses are really out of the gate and out of the pasture and down the free range, you can get in there and resolve a problem before it gets too big. That's a lot of them these days.
Yeah, and a lot of them are small scale to the point where it's reportable, but we don't often really get involved with the cleanup. A lot of times the fire departments, hazmat teams, sometimes the towing companies that get out there will put down some speedy dry or absorbent, sweep it up, and dispose of it. And with all of us, having, for better for worse, the smartphones attached to us 24/7, that really helps us because we get live, real-time photos and videos sent to us from the other response agencies on site, and we can decide should we respond or help guide them through it and save us a trip out there. Especially if it's hour and a half ride from our office to get to some site for a couple gallon spill that can be pretty easily cleaned up. So there is the pretty large gap between the smallest ones reported and the largest ones.
I think I need to frame it this way. There are 10,000 new spills each year, okay? And most of those, the vast majority, are opened and closed quickly. But we have a steady state of about 9,500 long-term situations where a spill occurred, usually underground at a gas station or related to an apartment building or some commercial facility, and some work was done, and some contamination remains. But what we do in our spill program is ensure that we don't allow conditions to exist that create a human health or an environmental problem. You can expect, most people wouldn't be surprised that there's a little bit of schmutz under a gas station, okay, but where that stuff is...
Is that a technical term, by the way?
That is absolutely a technical term, schmutz. But where it is a sufficiently large amount of contaminated soil that serves as a tea bag to generate a dissolved contaminant plume that might intercept someone's private well, we don't let it get to that size any longer, and that's what's one of the great benefits of having all these early warning devices. We don't experience the impact on private wells to nearly the extent that we used to.
Right. And to that point, I would say 25, 30 years ago, we would get a lot more of the large gas station spills. The old tanks leaked, and we didn't know about it until it showed up, properties down the road. I wouldn't say those are all gone. And actually, we're dealing with one in our region the last few months where it was tanks that did leak, and we found out about it because all of a sudden there were gas odors in the sewer in a couple of neighboring properties. So that we spent a lot of time out there, and that's one of those perfect situations where we worked with the health department, the local sewer department, fire department. We had to do interim measures because the atmosphere in the sewers were explosive. So we had to vent those. The tanks have been removed, a lot of soil's been excavated, and so really the emergency part of it is pretty much resolved. Now the next step is the expanded investigation. We took care of the emergency. Now, how far did it go? How deep is it? How many Did it go one or two properties underground? So our next step is to put soil borings and groundwater monitoring wells in to, better define how far the plume has gone, and then once we know that information, we'll figure out the best method to remediate it. But to throw numbers out, I was curious myself. Before this, I did a search of our database, and since the 70s, when spills started being reported, we have over 530,000 reported spills to DEC, and just around 10,000 active, still open at this point. So that's quite an accomplishment.
Absolutely. And if you look at the federal statistics for what they call their LUST numbers, leaking underground storage tanks, New York is the national leader. Out of 50 states, we have a significantly higher number of successfully cleaned up leaking underground storage tank situations. I believe the number is approximately 29,500 of actual underground storage tank releases that were of consequential environmental volume that we cleaned up to our satisfaction. And that's something that we're rather proud of.
New York, always leading.
Always.
So to report a spill, call the DEC spill hotline. That number is 1-800-457-7362.
And get in touch with one of our spill responders. So walk us through that. You see a spill in the environment, or you have a 10-gallon gas tank in your backyard that happens to tip over and spill. It's reportable to DEC, correct? And what are the steps someone should take if something like that happens in their own backyard?
It is reportable, and calling the hotline is the quickest, easiest way to get in touch with us and start the process. And whether that's something we can talk a homeowner through, what to do, or we come out there and do the cleanup. There's a lot of different ways to handle that, but something like that, it would just excavate it. Hopefully it doesn't spread too far, and dispose of the soil. And those are the quick and dirty ones. You get them done, versus the long-term, been going on for 5 or 10 years that need extensive investigation.
So, Mike, you talked about trainings a little bit ago, or coordination with local entities like local fire departments, local police departments, who are the true first responders on a scene. When we're not in the middle of a spill, are we doing trainings with them, or how do we approach, building their relationships so they know how to respond and know how to work with us in the field?
Great question. There's a lot of meetings where both organizations have a chance to attend and communicate. LEPC is one of them. It's local emergency planning, and it's more of a blue sky type of meeting situation. We're there to just have discussions, update each other on what we're doing, learn about each other's capabilities, and that's the best time to do it when your hair's not on fire, you're not running 4 different directions, it's not 3 in the morning on a Saturday, it's night, there's no resources available to help, and that's not the time you want to start a conversation with these other groups and agencies for mutual aid and help.
So how'd you two get involved in this line of work, and is this where you wanted to be working for Team DEC?
Yeah, I spent some time in the military, and I guess it was the first Gulf War, looking at those Kuwaiti oil fires, and it occurred to me that there's probably going to be some work cleaning up these kind of messes. And I got back to civilian life and went out to Stony Brook and studied geology and hydrogeology, and it just turned out that a company in my hometown of Farmingdale, Tyree Brothers, was one of the nation's largest gas station building companies, along with they were also a state remediation contractor for the spill program. So that was my first job in the environmental business, was cleaning up broken gas stations for under contract to New York State DEC. And after doing that for a couple of years, folks at DEC encouraged me to come aboard and direct the contractors for them. That's kind of when I got to meet Mike up in Region 8.
So, what's your story, Mike?
Well, as a young child, I grew up a little over a half mile away from Onondaga Lake. And to be a kid, adventurous, loved outdoors, me and my friends, to have a lake that close that we couldn't swim in, we could fish. It wasn't recommended, but you couldn't keep the fish. Just didn't really sit right. And it being young, I had no idea why it was polluted and contaminated. Then before my senior year of high school, the local paper did a 4 or 5 week expose on the history of the lake, and it was this beautiful spa resort type lake, and it ticked me off actually, knowing hey, 80 years ago somebody my age would have had a ball in the being this close to the lake, and I couldn't, and that what kind of directed me towards the environmental side. Unfortunately, back then, specific degrees in environmental engineering, environmental science weren't really popular, or they were just starting out. Luckily, at Syracuse University, where I went, they had an environmental concentration under their chemical engineering program, and I saw that, and I said, yep, that sounds good to me, and that kind of got the ball rolling, and 34 and a half years later, I'm at DEC still.
So, if some young New Yorker was interested in joining DEC and becoming part of the spills response team, how should they go about it?
It definitely takes a certain type. If you're an adrenaline junkie and want to work for DEC, I think spills is the program for you. It's amazing. You think about the first couple times you have to go out at 2 a.m. because the tanker truck rolled over. And I remember my first time, and it was definitely fear, and that was before we had all the modern communication. We had one bag phone that we passed around the office, and would call our supervisor at his home phone, trying to not even know what to expect. Then you get out there, it just kicks in. Your training, your experience, even if you don't have a lot of it, it kicks in, and you stop. The fear goes away. You just, okay, something has to be done. I'm going to do it. We got all these other people. We're going to work together, and it just happens. It's not for everybody, but if you like the challenge, you like not having to do the same thing every day. You like a little bit of the unknown, like being a detective. A lot of times we get spills reported. We have no idea where the source is, and we spend days, weeks, months investigating, trying to figure out where it came from, and then who's responsible. So I think a lot of people have taken it kind of some of the spills as a personal challenge, and I want to say coworkers of mine over the years, that's why some of the spills maybe stayed open as long as they have, because we know we can figure out who did it, and so it's kind of fun, actually.
Yeah, it's one of the few areas in environmental cleanup where you get to see the fruits of your labor, and you see the benefits of what you've done. It's not just some amorphous situation. Someone's drinking water well tastes terrible, and you restore it. With the health department, we have the relocation program, where in the middle of the night, some family is in dire straits. They can't stay in their home. We'll make sure that they have a place to sleep for the night.
Yeah, and you take pride. My wife and kids would definitely roll their eyes when they hear this, but I can't tell you how many times we're driving around as a family and going through the region, like, oh, that was a spill site of mine I cleaned up. Oh, that was another one I cleaned up. See that over there? That's because of me. Yeah. Or my coworker cleaned that up. That whole neighborhood was contaminated, and we know, Dad. We know. We
I do
drive
the
this way
same
every
thing,
month.
Mike, with my family, and I get the same reaction. I feel you. Well, as it goes, you two, looks like we've got a manure spill happening in Western New York right now. There's always something going bump somewhere around these parts, so we're going to let you guys get back to it. And, just it's awesome work that you and your teams do. And I tell them every year when I get to see them that I actually love getting the phone calls in the middle of the night because I always want to know what's going on and what they're up against. And it gives me great pride to know that we've got such a solid team behind us, really problem solving on the fly and keeping bad things from going worse in the environment once they happen. So thanks for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
So that was a great conversation talking to Mike and Kevin.
No, indeed it was.
As someone who receives those spill reports each and every day, it's really great to meet the humans behind them.
Definitely. On some strange level, Erica, I actually look forward to seeing these spill reports come in the email just because I like to know what's going on and going bump in the night. But I also like to know what Team DC is up to protect New Yorkers. And it's fun to see what they're responding to, even though we're talking about really, difficult subjects sometimes when things are spilling into the environment. It's not
Yeah.
the positive, but the team behind it is very positive.
And knowing they're out there 24/7.
Yeah. And we do have to give a special shout out to Kevin Hale, who you just heard from. And just before recording this little segment here, we got an email from Kevin saying he's retiring from DEC. So this
Sad
is his
day.
farewell episode here
Yep.
on DEC Does What. So Kevin, thank you for your service and being on the show.
And I'm glad we caught him before he left.
Same. So speaking of catching people before they leave, obviously summertime is far away, and before you go on breaks, it's good to plan in advance. So Erica, what are some of the things we're looking forward to this summer?
So, parents and guardians, mark your calendars. DEC's summer camp registration opens on Sunday, March 23rd
Oh,
at
boy.
1 p.m. And let me tell you, you want to be sitting at your computer ready to go at 1 p.m. because spots fill up fast.
They do.
DEC camps are a great opportunity for kids 11 to 17 to get offline and get outside at one of DEC's amazing summer camps. They've been around for a long time. It's a fantastic experience. Highly recommend.
Yeah, it's a lot of rich history that you're taking part in by coming to these camps. Also getting really great real world experience on environmental concepts and themes that help your education, but also help set you up on career paths to potentially come to DEC in the future. And we actually interviewed some candidates recently who told us that they went to DEC summer camps or were camp counselors back in
Super
the day.
cool.
And that's really how they got so interested in becoming a Team DEC player here.
Yep.
So check out our DEC summer camps for sure.
So also on the horizon, if New Yorkers are interested in becoming a licensed guide, a falconer, a wildlife rehabilitator, or a leashed tracking dog handler, we just announced upcoming dates of exams for folks looking to get these special licenses. Details and registration requirements are available on DEC's website. We encourage anyone who's interested in pursuing any of these licenses or responsibly helping care for wildlife to sign up.
Yeah, check out dec.ny.gov for more information on that. And this year, what's cool is obviously these are free exams, but also we're making them online. So you don't actually have to go to a testing location. You can do it from the comfort of your own home or wherever. And it's just trying to make it easier and more affordable for people to come in and get these experiences and these licenses to really partake in these things, and especially the responsible wildlife care, which is so critical to helping our wildlife species out.
Absolutely. And just a reminder that these exams are just a step in the process to becoming fully licensed and credentialed.
Yeah, there's a lot of different requirements that are out there. A lot of information on our website. Please definitely take a look and take these exams, which is the first step in the process. Please take these exams, which is the first step in the process.
All right. So Arbor Day, believe it or not,
Oh, boy.
some say is right around the corner.
Erica, I got to start stretching. Let me tell you, the tree planting that we did last year, I'm still sore in certain parts of my body.
My ear is still sore from making all those phone calls.
That was a lot.
Yep. So believe it or not, Arbor Day is around the corner, and so is DEC's annual spring seedling sale. It's open now, and it runs through May 14th. Each year, DEC's Seedling Nursery offers low-cost New York-grown trees and shrubs for sale. We're really encouraging folks to plant trees and shrubs, help conserve New York's natural resources,
foster the next generation of forests, and help us reach our goal of planting 25 million trees by 2033.
Great opportunity to spend some time with the kids outside too, getting them and their hands dirty in the springtime, planting these trees. And the seedling sale is a great place to just come and get the stock that you need to plant in your backyards or in your community. So definitely check it out. Well, Eric, I think that brings us to the end of the show today.
It does.
But one of the exciting things on the horizon, obviously, we're in the new year here, second week in January. And obviously appreciate all the listeners here who stuck with us through the past year. And we obviously have some exciting episodes coming up soon. And one of them is at the end of the year, DEC spent a lot of time throughout the last year developing these new regulations to protect freshwater wetlands. And we are going to have one of our freshwater wetland experts on the show next to talk about these regulations and why wetlands are so awesome and important and everything we're doing to protect them here in New York State. So keep tuning in to DEC Does What. Keep checking out our website, dec.ny.gov, for all the news and information that you need. And Erica, most importantly, what can people do?
Get outside, but please wear a coat.
DEC Does What is a production of DEC's Division of Communication, Education, and Engagement. Our theme music is an original composition by Mike Menza, wildlife technician with DEC's Division of Fish and Wildlife. Like what you heard on this episode? Please leave a review and share this episode with others. Want to learn more about DEC's wide-ranging efforts to protect New Yorkers and the environment? Visit dec.ny.gov or connect with us on social media. You can find us using @NYSDEC. For more information on DEC Does What, visit dec.ny.gov/podcast.